Hello, Reenita. Welcome to DC Conversations. And so lovely. Finally, we get to talk about the person who has really revolutionized, a lot of things for men. So I thought, okay. So first of all, tell me about this book, Ace of Blades.
Tell you, oh my gosh, where to begin? There's so much to tell.
Yeah.
The This book really is the memoirs of my late father, R.K. Malhotra, who hand built with his two hands, literally, India's razor blade industry. And I use the words industry very specifically because it goes beyond his companies, factories, brands. There were many. Some of them, are more popularly known than the others. But he literally built the industry post independence, corralled all the other players, whether they were competitors, allies, whatever they were. He brought them in. And when I say industry, it's beyond the physical product of the blade or the shaver, even because this was a mechanical engineer who wanted to create the highest quality blade at the
Mhm.
lowest possible price for the masses, every man in India to use. So, in order to do that, he backwardly integrated, he rolled his own steel, he processed his own steel, he made the machines to make the raw material, the steel, and also the machines to make the blade, all with the idea of being able to command the lowest possible price. So when you know of names like Jindal, for example, when you think steel, this is the guy, R.K. Malhotra, who first taught them how to even make sense of their very first rolling mills. So,
Mhm.
so it's a very wide topic that, even one book or one lifetime doesn't justify. But I am a storyteller and I was adamant to write his story. And I had been in some way, shape, or form planning it for a good 15 years before the book actually was written. So
Wow.
it's now approximately maybe almost 20 years uh, since then, because like writing it, planning it, no, planning it took, I would say 15 years, writing it the year after he passed away. And then it's been about 4 years or so since then. So maybe 19, 20 years, you know, I've been at this.
So, at what point did you think your father's, life? I mean, what point did your father's life feel bigger than memory, and you thought that yes, it demands a book?
Such a great question and very difficult for me to answer, not because it didn't just happen overnight. I grew up in this household. So, like I've been saying to people, our table conversations were not about my homework or my friends or my algebra, things like that. But it was about factories and steel and the suppliers and market mein kya ho raha hai and, what container is going abroad and what, things like that. So, by osmosis, I have learned a lot. I mean, yesterday I was at IIT talking. I'm not the STEM kid. That's not me.
Yeah.
But I know the stuff. I know the stuff that, it's all at the tip of my fingers. We all do because we lived it. This is lived experience for us. And, as a child, every child, whoever the child is, whoever your parent is, whatever they do, you want to buck the trend. You don't agree with your parents. You don't want to do what they do. In my case, I certainly wasn't, razor blades wasn't my first love growing up. But even if it was, there was absolutely no scope of me being part of this because I come from a very traditional Punjabi family where daughters are, they just don't have, any say or any part of a family business. It's just not the tradition. So I knew, that, yeah, what's the point? Why are we talking about this? Can we talk about my friends and my homework instead? But, as I sort of grew up and my career took off sort of in the media, and I have written books over the years. I have been a broadcast journalist, a print journalist, and, a storyteller in some way, shape, or form, through my career. And of all the stories, fiction, non-fiction, jo bhi hai, this one has fascinated me, not because I knew it from the inside, of course, that contributes, because, here was a man who has made such an impact on an entire, I don't know, what is it? A generation is 10 years or 20 years? If it's 20 years, then maybe three generations of men for the 60 out of his 84 or 85-year-old life while he was making those blades.
Mm.
And definitely in India, but honestly, all over the Middle East and Africa, which frankly is the biggest shaving market in the world outside of India, you know. And to them, he's this hero. It's a coming of age story for him, for the FMCG sector, for Indian shaving products specifically, and for every single Indian man who has shaved with his products. And after all, what does a man do when he comes of age? A boy, when he comes of age, he shaves, right? So it
Yeah,
was so significant to me on different levels that, and don't get me wrong, most of my stories, in fact, are very female driven. I'm very, that is my MO. This is the opposite. It's totally male and alpha male. But,
mm,
it deserves its place and it should not be thought of otherwise. And it was very important to me. So this was a course of reckoning over the years. And I did realize, I would say, in those last 15 or so years of his life, that this is a story that needs to be brought out. By that time, his role in his business had taken on a different shape, if you will. He'd essentially sold his company to private equity and he wasn't really working in that capacity anymore.
mm,
Razor blades, he was building another steel engineering industry for his son and his grandsons. So he was involved with that. But I said to him once, twice, three times, many, many times, I said, Papa, this story, I need your story. This needs to be a book. And he would say to me, no, I'm not ready. Nahi, in my own time, dekha jayega. When I'm ready, I'll let you know. And this went on for about 10 years plus.
mm.
And it would drive me mad. And then in the last few years of his life, he had a fall, unfortunately, and he was bedridden, in the recovery period for a good 4 months. He strapped to this hospital bed, but he agreed to start talking into a voice recorder. It
Mm.
wasn't entirely successful, but I realized at that time two things. I said, one, maybe he's ready to tell me his story, and two, I'm going to need to be there with him because this voice recorder, it's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I saw him after that. The last time I saw him, which I didn't know would be the last time, was October 2020. We were still in COVID at the time, although it was towards the end of the COVID era. And I had flown from California to London. My brother had orchestrated for my parents to fly from Mumbai to London. I went through a very extensive 2-week quarantine, what was happening at the time, and then spent a lovely 3 weeks with my parents. And on day two, my father just starts talking. And I got about 14 and a half hours of tape at the
Wow.
time. I know. So I really thought this is a message from the divine. Stars are aligning, everything is working out. Now is my moment.
Yeah, yeah. That's right.
So.
So, what part of R.K. Malhotra's story was the hardest to write without flinching? And also, you said, yeah, you got some inside info also because you were the daughter. And then on the other hand, you're also an author. So, how did you balance that?
Thank gosh for the fact that I'm an author and have had many, many years of journalistic experience.
Mm,
Because I remember when I was, talking to him and creating the tapes and just finding it really hard. He would start off on one thing and then another thing. Nothing was linear. It didn't make sense. And I said, just Papa, slow down. And my mother was in the room as well. And I said, how am I going to begin to piece all of this together? You're going from A to Z to F to, X. And they had no sympathy. They were like, you're the journalist, you figure it out. You know? So thank gosh for that experience. I know how to get at material which seems to be all over the place and spend the time with it to make sense of it. And it takes time. You know better than anyone how much, it takes a lot of time, dedication. But you go down a rabbit hole and you become completely obsessed. And that rabbit hole, that silo becomes your comfort zone, and just nothing is more important than that story. So that was one thing. But also as an author, I mean, it's really interesting because if you read the book, I mean, this is nonfiction. but it's literary nonfiction. It reads like a fictional story. You read
Mm.
it and you think, oh my gosh, is this fiction? Could this have happened and that and that? And then be just with the way, you develop characters and plot and structure, and conflict. These are the things that are constantly on your mind when you're writing a fictional piece, whether it's the outline, the book, or a movie screenplay, whatever it is. And over here, it's like I had these crazy dynamic, crazy dynamic, amazing protagonist who is just conflict ridden and had flaws and had magnetism, and you would root for him despite the flaws, and it was just beautifully already crafted by the universe. you know and then conflict, I mean, it's just literally I pulled it out of real life and put it on the page. I mean, it's almost like it was there, it was done for me. I just had to piece it together. So it
Mm.
was a very interesting exercise because it was ready-made, and the book itself went into auction. um, there were three different publishers by the end of it who were interested in publishing, and one of them, who I thought might be at the time my first choice, in fact said to me, listen, you work for Bloomberg. Can you just, summarize a lot of this, to read like a Bloomberg business report? I mean, this is a business book. And I thought, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. you know because
Yeah,
this is what was interesting about it, is those conversations that happened, albeit,
exactly. Yeah.
you know um and the other two publishers were very, very interested in the story, of course, but also for that aspect, of the way it was written. So yeah, that's what happened.
So if you were to look back, I mean, also because you have so much of information you had at your fingertips. So what business decision of his, feels more radical even by today's standards?
Oh my gosh, Reshmi, what can I be? There are so many instances. This is a guy who, in his life principles, he's got about 30 life principles, which I list towards the end of the book. And they could be a self-help book unto themselves. Maybe that'll happen one day. I don't know. um, One of his life principles that comes to mind as you ask me this question, I think of, is he says that there are three kinds of law. There's statutory law, there's corporate law, and there's jungle law. And you're thinking, what is jungle law?
Yeah.
If you, now, if you think back to your days of reading Rudyard Kipling and Mowgli and Sher Khan and, uh, those books, the laws of the jungle basically exist in order for everybody to survive. It's a survival of the fittest
Mm, yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
So very much what Archie believed was to do well in business, or to build a business well, yes, you've got to abide by the laws of the state, statutory law, corporate law, those things. But there's a certain type of jungle law, survival of the fittest, that if you don't have that, you don't get anywhere. Now think about how businesses are built. Any business, today's new wave tech businesses, the very old sort of big industry of yesteryear, you find loopholes, weaknesses, areas of weaknesses, gaps to be filled. And it's in filling those gaps that a business can grow, is allowed to grow, will burgeon, take shape. Right? I think
Mm.
that standard across the board. And RK very, very much believed in that. Okay. So jungle law was this concept that we grew up with. Would you do what it takes to grow this? And even if it doesn't make sense to you, or even if it's kind of out there and outlandish. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one example. There are many in the book. So no spoilers. Please read it. But I'll give
Yeah.
you one example. In the 1970s, in 1970, the year 1970, the brand Topaz was born. Now, Topaz is a double-edged blade that became India's number one blade brand by 1973. So in a very short course of time, every single Indian man was shaving with Topaz. You knew it because if you were watching TV, Chaya Geet, Chitrahar, Yash Chopra movies, you would see Topaz.
Yeah. Yeah.
And billboards and, hoardings and everything. So Topaz was the number one brand. This was a brand that was owned by the House of Malhotras, RK's family of origin. It was funded by his father, Harbanslal Malhotra, and was built for the Malhotra family, there were three sons. RK was the youngest son, Rajinder Kumar. His eldest brother was Ved Prakash, his second brother, Surinder Nath. So VPSN and RK. So rights to the Topaz brand proceeds came three ways for these three sons in the family, so to speak. Now, um, however, there was family infighting, as unfortunately happens, in all most many family businesses.
Yeah, yeah.
RK falls out with his family of origin, and the business and the brands and everything is split. Now, the way they did it was, in my books, not very sensible because they split assets, factory assets, and rather than specific brand assets. So the Topaz blade was being manufactured in Calcutta factories as well as in Mumbai, Thane
Mm,
factories.
mm,
Um, so what my grandfather did was he said, okay, I'm going to split, since it's being manufactured in both of these places and others, Arcas, you get Thane, everything in Mumbai. The other brothers get the Calcutta factories, and we split the brand two-thirds, one-third. So RK, you can manufacture Topaz, they can manufacture Topaz.
mm.
RK knew that, okay, my father has essentially given me the rights to manufacture Topaz for the rest of my life, but his word is good this moment, but it's not going to last because this is not what happens in families. And
Yeah.
he knew that there would come a point in time, probably not too long after that, that somehow he would be edged out of Topaz. And that's exactly what happened. But
Mm,
because he foresaw it, he
mm.
said, what do I know? I know razor blades. I need to create my own brand. But if I just sort of create my own brand and put it out into the market, people don't know Topaz because of the brand. They know that it's a Malhotra quality product. So
Mm.
how do I build another Malhotra quality product that is Malhotra just me and not, my family of origin? And he said, people know at this point that there are two topazes in the market. The one made in Calcutta does not belong to me. The one made in Thane is RK Sub's topaz. People know that. So now I'm going to start printing Vidyut on the packaging. Vidyut Metallics Limited was the company under
Mm.
which RK's brand of topaz was being manufactured.
Mm.
So he said people need to begin to understand Vidyut, the company, so that when I bring out something in the future under the Vidyut name, they will
They
know
know
that
it
ये
is.
भी
Yeah.
आपके साथ का product hai, right? So build up the name of Vidyut. So he started printing Vidyut Topaz on the packaging. And then Jugad Jungle, crazy ingenious guy, he said, with every packaging print, I'm going to increase the font size of the word Vidyut. So he increased Vidyut, Vidyut, Vidyut. It became bigger so that, Vidyut, the font and the logo type was like overshadowing even Topaz. And that was the Topaz that was known to be very high quality at the price, the premium Topaz. It was actually being sold in stores like Amar Sons, Prem Sons in Mumbai as an imported product. Even though it wasn't imported, it was actually manufactured in Thane, but it was being sold as an imported product. Then, of course, there came, if you look on the internet before my book was released, there was not a lot of press at all. Now suddenly there is because of the book, but there's a bunch of lawsuits about, especially about the Topaz brand. And there came the day that RK was told you can no longer manufacture Topaz as of this moment, as of today, stop. So by that time, the market had already understood Vidyut, and RK had already taken another one of his brands that he had begun to manufacture, which wasn't supposed to be a double-edged blade initially, but he decided that it would be Supermax.
Mm.
And he started putting Supermax free into the market. He had begun to do that with every carton of Topaz before he was stopped from manufacturing Topaz, just so that the market would get accustomed with this new product, try it out, distribute it for free, the awareness would be built. And all of a sudden, what to us seemed like overnight, it's not exactly overnight, but it seemed like overnight to us, um, Supermax is suddenly established in the market with overnight rocketing success because people know that it's manufactured by Vidyut Metallics Limited, which is RK Saab's factory.
Mm. Amazing. So,
That's just one story.
wow, I'm sure I'm just waiting to read the book now. Yeah. Now, since we're talking about business, did writing this book change how you, understand ambition and its costs?
Yes, absolutely. I will just share, I wrote most of it the year after he died, which obviously was a very difficult year for me and, for all of us who lost him. And I was walking on the sands of Southern California. I live in California, and looking at my footprints in the sand and thinking, how is it that, this man who I've had in my life for 50 years has made, and personally had so much conflict with. Okay, this was not an easy relationship,
Yeah,
but who I love desperately, has had such a deep impact on my soul in the way my footprints are, making a print in the sand. And then a wave comes by and washes, and that footprint becomes lighter. And I thought, oh my God, that's the difference. I can't shake his soul print, but
yeah,
the sands of time are going to forget this character,
yeah,
right? So, it really got me to understand my father as a character and as a man and as an ambitious man separately from being my father. I could really create that distance
mm.
in order to write this book because, like I said, he was a hero to everybody in the market. But if you knew him at home, you would have other opinions, perhaps, you know. So it was very difficult, but I did realize that this is a guy who his number one love in life is that double-edged blade. That is his lover, wife, mistress, um, everything that he lives for is that double-edged blade. It's not wife, family, children. I mean, yes, I'm not saying he didn't love the rest of us, he did, but everything at the cost of that double-edged blade. Is that how life should be? Is it not how life should be? My opinions aside, it makes for something that, has created an imprint on the memories of so many people. So from that point of view, who am I to question that, right? How could it be wrong?
Yeah,
But ambition and blind ambition. And as I said earlier, this was a man whose life was just conflict ridden. So again, I come back to those words, blind ambition, because of the love for that blade. His ambition was not just ambition, it was blind ambition. He would do anything. And there were a lot of problems in his life, which
mm.
you could look at from a distance, I would argue was, say, self-imposed. But it was a life that I believe was not just worth living, it's a life that will be remembered and is a very important piece of Indian history, which is why it was so important for me to write this book because there was nothing out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Most of
yeah,
what he did was before the age of the internet and, phones and things like that. So I began to understand ambition and blind ambition in a different way. And when I study some of the great leaders, whether they're Steve Jobs or, Elon Musk, or, you know, these are contentious characters, good, bad, or ugly, but they have done brilliant things.
yeah,
Brilliant things.
absolutely. Yeah,
Their personalities and their state of mental health can be called into question. Has it been easy for anyone around them, inner circle, outer circle? No. Has it been worth being around them every second, inner circle, outer circle? I would say yes. That's the
yeah,
unanimous answer you'll get from everyone, even though those moments were difficult. So I hope
true.
that helps somewhat answer your question.
Yes, yes. Wow, what a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Renita. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah.